This is I Was 8, my weekly storytelling podcast. I'm Larry Fedoruk. Be sure to join me again next week and bring your toboggan. But now, this week's story.
Season 4, Chapter 9. Corporal Punishment.
I was 8, and corporal punishment was still a thing in schools. Sayings like spare the rod and spoil the child were still popular, adhered to, and practiced with regularity. The main instrument of torture within the school system was in fact not the rod, but the strap. The strap was a thin piece of leather, genuine cowhide, about 2 inches wide, 12 to 18 inches long. It had no other function other than to inflict pain on children. It was not a belt, not a barber strap, not decorative in any way, simply a strap. You didn't want to get the strap. Each classroom had one somewhere down there in the teacher's desk. I imagine that during August, each teacher received their allotment of supplies from the school board for the upcoming school year. Let me see, 8 chalk brushes, 3 boxes of chalk, box of pencils, 6 textbooks, 2 reams of foolscap, and 1 leather beating strap. Initial here, here, and here is signed at the bottom. There were other forms of discipline in school before resorting to the strap, the simplest one being the I said so, and the follow-up, because I said so. The teacher was the adult in charge, and what they said went. Now, if as a student you didn't always buy into that rule of guidance, the teacher had a few other nonviolent options. Stay after school, detention, and often during detention you might be given an unwanted task, extra schoolwork, clean the chalk brushes, put away all the books, and then having to explain to your parents why you were once again late in getting home from school. Where have you been, Larry? Nothing. Nowhere. Just out and about around the town's recreational facilities, enjoying some playful childhood activities. The farm kids came to school and went home again by bus. They never got detention. Lucky. Dad, can we buy a farm? Misbehaving sometimes resulted in a note being sent home to your parents. And to cruelly increase the level of degradation, you were the delivery person. Give this note to your mom and dad. Right. You know, Mr. Vice Principal, sir, I hear the post office is doing some wonderful work with mail delivery these days. May I suggest, and if the cost of a stamp is not within your budget, I'm sure some arrangements can give this to my parents. Right. Yes, sir. And then, wow, handing them the note, the worst. Here's a note from school. It could be a random unsolicited message about how much they love me, but on the other hand, should I just stand here and wait for the beating or come back later? Open humiliation was also quite popular. Sometimes the teacher would just dress you down in front of the whole class while they sat quietly listening to what a terrible kid you were. Other forms of humiliation included standing in the corner for a period of time or kneeling in the corner. In cartoons, idiots in school had to wear a dunce cap. We never did. We had advanced well beyond such silliness. Teachers also had other forms of corporal punishment before the dreaded leather. They threw chalk brushes at you, sometimes pieces of chalk. Wasn't a big problem for us in the little grades. Most of those teachers couldn't throw worth a damn. But in the older grades, some of those teachers helped coach football and track and field. They had really good arms. We heard from high school kids that Mr. Miller could take a piece of chalk and pick a fly off a wall at 40 feet. That sounded true. Some teachers liked to walk up and down the desk rows while they talked, so once in a while you'd get a barehanded rap on the back of the head. You know, I've never actually seen any medical studies on this, but it was believed at the time that you could actually knock some sense into a boy's head. Sometimes you'd get a rap on the knuckles or head with a ruler or the yardstick. A yardstick was like 3 rulers. except not taped together like me and Philip tried once, but a solid piece of wood 3 feet long. Still not clear why every classroom needed a yardstick, but we had one. There is one more tactic, don't want to leave it out. Suspension. That's when teachers just gave up. The beatings aren't working. Go home. One level below being expelled altogether. Never knew any kid who got expelled. Suspension was stay away for a few days. Huh? How was that punishment? That's called vacation. This one kid, Dwayne Mitchner, used to get suspended all the time. I'll bet if you added up all of his suspensions, he would miss like 2 months of school a year. Somehow, he spent 11 years in elementary school. Some days, when Dwayne was suspended, he'd come to the school at recess time and stand on the sidewalk. Occasionally, we'd throw him the ball and he'd throw it back. The recess teacher would run up and yell at him. He wasn't allowed on school property while suspended, and he would say he was standing on the sidewalk, which was city property, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. The teacher would walk away in a huff. Oh yeah, he was a badass, but in a good way. To recap, expulsion, suspension, detention, notes, humiliation, lectures, the throwing, the hitting, the smacking, the strap, all a very complicated system. I'm sure outlined to some clarity in the Department of Education handbook, but we never saw that. To us, it seemed mostly arbitrary. I mean, you could get in trouble for hijinks, but not shenanigans. Roughhousing was acceptable, but not tomfoolery. No horseplay, monkey business, and definitely no hanky-panky. There will be no buffoonery, and we'll have none of your nonsense. See what I mean? And girls never got the strap or smacked with a ruler. Now, to be clear, I'm not advocating any of this for any gender, but as kids, we thought girls got away with murder. By the way, just an expression, I've never known any girl who would murder anybody, although one day Rebecca Laszlo's older brother wasn't around town anymore. Some said he went away and joined the army, but we were all very suspicious. So who did get the strap? Remember, each teacher had their own strap and were responsible for their own beatings. Grade 1s almost never got the strap. Makes sense. You're a first grader. You didn't know anything. You likely were going to screw up constantly. So therefore, the daily floggings would take too much time. By second grade, well, bless the grade 2 teacher, Mrs. Carson. Lovely woman, but she was a member of the 80-80 Club. 80 years old, weighed 80 pounds, and got winded writing on the chalkboard. She wasn't going to strap anybody, even if she did remember where she kept it. By grade 3, however, you were expected to know better. The ultimate punishment, the strap, now realistically loomed in the realm of possibility. You had to really screw up, and again, unclear exactly how, Department of Education handbook, top secret documents, etc. There were levels within the strapping. You got a smack on the hand, smack on each hand, 2 smacks on each hand. Never heard of anyone getting more than 2 smacks. How hard the teacher strapped you was based on the severity of the transgression and how mad they were at you at the time. However, at our school, if you did something really bad, your teacher didn't strap you, and usually in front of the class, by the way. Instead, your teacher sent you to the grade 6 teacher, the school's de facto vice principal, who took you in a little room behind the grade 6 class and let you have it big time. That was Mr. Hollandati, a short, stocky, powerful man. Rumor was he let you have it good with all his might. You held out your hand, and the grade 6 class in the next room would shudder at the sound. Sometimes you could hear it in the next class over, or it echoed throughout the whole school. Legend also had it that one time Dwayne Mitchner pulled his hand away at the last second, and Mr. Hollandati instead smacked himself in the thigh. Dwayne got an extra strap for that, and then suspended. Because of his strapping reputation, we called Mr. Hollandati Mr. Holy Nasty. He may have been both, none, one, or the other, a gentleman and a scholar, who knows, but to us, Mr. Hollandati was Mr. Holy Nasty. During recess, we almost always played this ball game that was a combination of soccer, rugby, basketball. I don't know, we kind of improvised the rules. We used a soccer ball and you kicked it, but you could also pick it up and throw it, but you couldn't pick it up and run with it unless you were the team captain. But if you did pick it up, the captain could yell, "Larry's now the captain," and then you could run with it. You were allowed to tackle people. The ball had to be kicked through the goal to score a point, and no one ever played goal because no one just wanted to stand around for the entire recess. And we never actually chose teams. It was recess. It was too short. No time. Kids, whether it was 10 or 90, you just picked a side and started playing. Sometimes you would switch teams in the middle of the game, like a double agent. No one really knew you were on the other team until you scored on what they thought was your own goal. Ha ha! I'm on the other team now and I scored! Another favorite strategy, throw the ball to Dwayne on the sidewalk. So one day we're playing and I dive on the ball, 8 kids jump on top of me, fair game. But then I feel this one kid punching me in the shoulder, clearly violating league regulation. I freed one arm and just elbowed him in the ribs. Next thing I know, he's lying on his back on the playground trying to catch his breath and weeping. Didn't know my own strength. Within a minute, he got up and ran home. The kid's name was Stanley Hollandati, the nephew of Mr. Holy Nasty. When class resumed, there was a knock on the door. Mr. Holy Nasty called me out in the hall and then walked me into the little room behind the grade 6s. Oh no. He had gotten a call from his sister-in-law asking why little Stanley was at home and crying during the school day after being beat up by Larry Fedoruk. Well, I shared the ball. I had it didn't matter. He was the judge, jury, vice principal de facto, and executioner. All his might, 2 on each hand. Now, Larry, go back to your class. Man, it hurt. I sat at my desk vowing that I would not cry. Didn't make it. Tears streaming down my face. Kids staring at me. Our teacher talked to Mr. Holy Nasty out in the hall, came back, and nothing was said about it. Open your textbooks to page 17. Not sure if I can. Told a few kids after school, I got the strap. I was now a member of an elite group. Even though Mom was the grade 1 teacher at the school, somehow word of the flagellation hadn't reached her. I said nothing. Mr. Holy Nasty phoned later that evening. That's how Mom found out. She told Dad. I was grounded for 2 weeks. Grounded for getting the strap. Punished for being punished. Well, I suppose for committing the punishable offense in the first place, but I didn't see it that way. That got commuted to 1 week because after a while, Mom and Dad felt bad. That was years and years ago. Although recently, I recalled the story with Mom, and she said technically, I'm still on parole.
Thanks for listening to I Was 8, a weekly podcast voiced, written, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. This podcast is available on most major platforms, or check out the I Was 8 YouTube channel. Larry Fedoruk, that's Fedoruk, can be reached at larryfedoruk37@gmail.com.